All right, new question. First thing as always, first things first, read the question sentence. So here's what we got. Question sentence reads, for how many minutes is the studio in use? And we see here in parentheses that we have some clarifying detail that says count overlapping time only once. So before we get started, everybody, if we see that, let's say there's an overlap, from 9 a.m. to 9:30 for these two individual classes or things or whatever, are we going to count both of these half-hour periods from right here to here and right there to there? Or are we only going to count one? Correct. Yeah, we're not going to count both. We're only going to count it once. We could have had another class that ran from here to here. Again, with all of this being an overlap, we would only count this once and not count it again. And again, we don't count these twice because we already counted it there. So notice when you run your finger down, it's only marked once for each time slot. 9 to 9:30, check, don't count it again. Over here, count it once, don't count it again. So we just kind of go down that time slot and again, make sure that overlaps are only counted once. So let's get it done here. Let's remove all of this hypothetical and let's use the context that we have. A gym schedules classes, yoga from 8 to 8:45, cycling 8:30 to 9:15, and HIIT from 9 a.m. to 9:30. From 8 to 9:30, for how many minutes is the studio in use? Counting overlapping time only once. So with that said, everybody, we are going to say from 8 to 9:30, so that's an hour and a half period. We have yoga from 8 to 8:45. Then we have cycling from 8:30 to 9:15. And then before we even start talking about HIIT, I'm going to have that discussion with you about yoga and cycling. So that's this right here. We're going to have that discussion because just like we just showed in that miniature graphic series that we just showed, we are going to notice that there's an overlap from 8:30 to 8:45, everybody. So when we think about that, from 8:30 to 8:45, we're only going to count it once. So we are going to say, hey, we have 45 minutes of yoga from 8 to 8:35 or 8:45. And then for our cycling class, let me write this over here. That first 15 minutes from 8:30 to 8:45, that's already counted here in yoga. That's already counted. So we're not going to count it again. So we're going to start from 8:45 to 9:15. My party people, before I continue, does that make, again, general sense in your head? Just the idea of not double counting 8:30 to 8:45 because it was already counted before, and then starting our count from 8:45. Not 8:30, because again, look, this class ends at 8:45. So 8:30 means this class is already still going. So we don't count it twice. Everyone, how many minutes goes from 8:45 to 9:15? 15 minutes to get to 9 o'clock. 15 more to get to 9:15. Yeah, and that's going to make it 30 minutes. So let's write that down in green. And let's get to the last part. We have our HIIT class, high intensity interval training, and that's going to go from 9 to 9:30. My party people, are we going to count the entire 30-minute period? Are we going to count the entire 30-minute period? Absolutely not. Absolutely not. Because similar to the yoga class overlapping with cycling, cycling overlaps with the HIIT class. Again, it ends at 9:15. HIIT starts at 9 a.m. So that first 15 minutes, we're not going to count twice. We are going to begin at 9:15 in terms of starting that count, and that's just going to be an extra 15 minutes. 9:15 to 9:30. So there we are, everybody. We have the three separate time frames, 45, 30, and 15. And we just add it together. And that's going to give us a grand total of 90 minutes. And that's going to conclude us here at answer choice B. So hopefully we feel pretty good about that. The idea here, again, the main idea is making sure that we are not counting the same time period twice. So the room is occupied. If there is one class or two classes going on, it's still occupied. So there it is, my party people. Hopefully we are feeling pretty good about that, and I hope you're ready for what comes next. All right, new problem. All right, let's try this out. As always, we're going to read that question sentence first. So it says, after filling the shelves as evenly as possible, how many books remain? Okay, so let's give this problem a shot here. It says, a librarian has 256 books, A librarian has this many books to place equally on 12 shelves. After filling the shelves as evenly as possible, ooh, I like that. Let me go ahead and just highlight that right there. As evenly as possible, how many books remain? Everybody, what operation does it sound like we're trying to do here initially? We have this many books to organize amongst these shelves. If we're trying to split a total amongst a group to see how many fit in each, that's division. That's division. If you're trying to find the number of groups or the number for each group, that is division. If you're trying to find the grand total, that is multiplication. So boom, I have figured out that the 256 books that we have in total that we're splitting amongst the 12 shelves, that's division. And then after we're done filling them as evenly as possible, well, there's probably going to be a remainder, and that remainder is going to be our answer. So let's go ahead and figure that out here. So let's do 256. Let's split it up by 12 to see how many groups we can make. But more importantly, what we care about, again, is the remainder. So here we go. 12 going into 256. Here we go. 12 goes into 2. Well, it doesn't. 12 goes into 25. That's going to be 2. So 12 times 2, that's 24. So we'll subtract 24, and we have a 1 left over. 1 is not the answer. Hold on. We're going to bring the 6 down for 16, and we'll divide again. 12 goes into 16. That's going to be 1 time. And because 1 times 12 is 12, we subtract, and we get a remainder of 4. So this remainder over here, everybody, this remainder is our final answer. That's because each shelf will contain 21 books. Again, as evenly as possible. We'll have 21 books on each of those 12 shelves, but we're going to have a remainder, a leftover of 4. We'll have a leftover of 4, and that's how many books remain after we try to split it all up. So therefore, everyone, the correct answer here is answer choice B.